It's now a familiar drill for Spanish citizens. For the third time in 4 years, they're being asked to vote in a general election. And if you think 4 is a crowd, polls indicate the return next Sunday after nearly 4 decades of the far right. So it would be 5 at the rostrum there for those candidates' debates. The splintering of the political landscape began with the financial and real estate crisis a decade ago in Spain. How did we get from the left-wing Indignados anti-austerity movement to xenophobic right-wing nativism? While it's true that retired generals from the Franco era are running under the Vox banner, nostalgia for military dictatorship frankly seems minor in the list of reasons for the radicalization, if you will, of Spanish politics. There's a rejection of corruption, and 18 months on, the country is still bitterly divided over how to handle that failed bid for Catalonian independence. While separatist leaders campaign from jail, constitutional purists, you might say, reject any whiff of a federalist compromise. How did moderate Spain become so entrenched? Today in the France 24 debate, we're looking at just how splintered is Spain. With us from Madrid, Ciudadanos Member of Parliament, Tony Roldan. Thank you for joining us. You're running for re-election in Barcelona.
I am, yes. Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be with you.
Tony Fernandez is Deputy Secretary General of the Europe branch of the ruling Socialist Party. How are you?
Good evening.
Welcome as well to the delegate of the Catalan government to France. He is Daniel Camos. How are you, sir?
Hi, how are you?
And France 24 correspondent Sarah Morris is also with us from the Spanish capital. Hello, Sarah. The France 24 debate on Facebook and on Twitter, hashtag F24debate. Yeah, only 4 leaders at the rostrum for the first of a pair of candidates' debates on Monday. That's because Vox is not represented in the outgoing parliament. Wassim Cornet has more.
It's the final stretch for the 4 main candidates in Sunday's parliamentary elections in Spain. On the left, Pedro Sanchez's Socialist Party and Podemos, and on the right, the People's Party and Ciudadanos. And it was these 2 candidates who quickly tackled incumbent Prime Minister Sanchez over his handling of the Catalan separatist movement.
The unity of Spain is at risk because of the government of Pedro Sanchez. It's simple. Those who want to break up Spain have labeled Sanchez as the favorite candidate.
Opposition parties have criticized Sanchez, saying he got the country's top job thanks to separatist votes when a no-confidence vote was held against former Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy. But Sanchez insists he will keep a firm stance in the face of any attempt by Catalonia to move toward independence.
With a socialist government, there will not be a referendum on independence or independence itself, and we will not allow the Spanish constitution to be broken. What we will do is tell separatist leaders that if they want to resolve this problem of coexistence, what they have to do is return to the constitutional and legal path.
According to recent polls, Sanchez's Socialist Party is set to come out on top with about 1/3 of the vote. But that would not be enough to get a flat-out majority in parliament. Enter Podemos, the anti-austerity party.
We're ready, despite the difficulties and the complexities and mistrust, and the feeling that the socialist government is not always true to its word. We're willing to make that government possible.
Left-wing parties say their opponents' views have gotten dangerously close to those of Vox, the far right-wing party. Vox was not allowed to take part in Monday's debate because it does not yet have any seats in parliament. The 4 main candidates will take to the stage one last time on Tuesday night for another debate.
Sarah Morris, what did we learn from that first candidates' debate?
Well, there's a friction on key issues like the independence of Catalonia. In particular, we saw the Conservative leader Pablo Casado and Albert Rivera, the leader of the Liberals, asking the Socialist Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez, would he be willing, like some of the Socialists had said, to pardon those 12 Catalan independence leaders if they are convicted at the Supreme Court at the end of their trial for charges like rebellion, sedition, sedition and embezzling public money. And the Prime Minister then said that he wouldn't express an opinion on that. He'd said it wasn't appropriate. No Prime Minister had expressed an opinion on whether to pardon someone before the result of the court case. He was also under attack from Pablo Iglesias, his current left-wing ally from Podemos, who asked him a couple of times directly, would he be prepared to pact with the Citizens' Party, the Liberals. He didn't answer that question, but Albert Rivera, the Liberal leader, said very specifically that he wanted Pedro Sanchez out of the government, that he felt disappointed by the fact that he felt that he had made concessions to the Catalan nationalist government. That was one of the issues, many more, and many people felt that Albert Rivera, the Liberal leader, was the big winner. But of course, round two tonight, François, and we expect many of the candidates to pull the gloves off because they know they've got to appeal to that 20 to 40% of voters who say they're undecided, may know what they're going to vote, but certainly could switch the result on Sunday.
Yeah, it's incredible when you think back to when the financial crisis began in 2007, just how much it's changed in Spain. 4 candidates, as you've been seeing those images at the rostrum, for men, for young men, average age 41. At 47, Pedro Sanchez, the eldest. Here are some of the reactions we heard this Tuesday.
It's definitely by chance. They all look like they're out of a catalog for Corte Inglés. Their clothing, style, it's all rather similar, I would say, except for Pablo Iglesias.
Regarding looks, I think it's improved from what we previously had. And in terms of age, because they're younger, they're all fairly young, so they're representing the young and active population.
Personally, I think it's ridiculous. The fact that they're young or not young, handsome or handsome, is not going to affect my daily life. But yes, it's true that people think about these things.
So this makeover in Spanish politics with younger, these 3 of the 4 did look a lot alike, except for Pablo Iglesias, of course, with the ponytail. But how do you explain it, Tony Fernandez?
Well, I think it's a natural process in life that you have, fortunately, some renovation, in institutions. I believe that, political life is just part of life, and therefore, you shouldn't be having eternal politicians, in the institutions. But I agree with the comments that were made by the last person interviewed. I think that the looks or the youth is not really the defining issue, because you may be young and yet not share, and have very different political views. And I think that was, something that we could see yesterday during the debate.
All right, so Pedro Sanchez, ahead in the polls, but far shy of getting a majority, so he'd have to make a coalition. Do you think he'll look left or he'll look right?
Well, I think that, the best answer to that was the 9 months that we had, behind of us of government, which was in difficult conditions. But I think that the Socialist Party has been faithful to its political program, trying to gain support in Parliament despite all the blocking that, Partido Popular and Ciudadanos have been put forward in the institutions. And I think that the measures can be defined as, very inclusive, leading towards a more progressive society.
So left is what you're saying?
Yes, you can definitely, say that.
Okay, Tony Roldan, do you see Ciudadanos eventually entering into a coalition with the socialists?
No, we basically disagree with pretty much everything that Sanchez has done. We had an agreement in the past with the Socialist Party. I was there in the governing, in the negotiating table, but things have changed significantly. I think there is something that has been misregarded in the analysis, in the previous analysis, which is crucial for what has happened in Spain in the last 2 years, right? So basically, there was a supremacist government in Catalonia that tried to do a coup and to change the established legal system in Catalonia by another one, by a different one. They passed some transition laws towards a new legal system violating the constitution and therefore the fundamental rights of more than half of Catalans and the rest of Spaniards. And they tried to do it unilaterally and to impose on the others that new legal reality. This is a coup, right? And it cannot be ignored. And that's why some politicians are being charged and judged for very hard and very hard accusations, right? Sanchez, a few months after this coup, decided to get in an agreement, in a government agreement with these supremacist Catalan independentists and another group of 4 or 5 parties, which in the present context is exactly the last thing that Spain needs. We are still in a fragile situation. We are the second largest deficit in Europe. We have a large debt. We have double the amount of unemployment of the rest of Europe. We need reforms. We need to look forward. We need to look towards Europe and less towards increasing divisions and privileges between and among regions in Spain. And what they did was, I think, in my opinion, a terrible mistake. And as a result, we are saying we are not going to get an agreement with them. What we want is a progressive, pro-European, open, modern, reformist platform that can address all the reforms we need to do.
All right, Tony Roldan, the images make for strange viewing in a Western democracy. We have Catalan separatist leader Oriol Junqueras last Friday staging a press conference from jail. He's charged with rebellion, sedition, misuse of public funds. He faces a potential term of 25 years. He hinted at that press conference that his party might support Sanchez's bid to form a government. He said, quote, "We will not set any red lines, but we will not issue a blank check." Your thoughts on, at some point or another, there's going to have to be some kind of coming together so that positions don't remain so entrenched. Are you suggesting that the only way when it comes to Catalonia is with the stick and not with a carrot?
No, I think this is a misunderstanding of what's happening. We are absolutely open to talk about everything within the constitutional framework that protects us and that establishes the way we discuss with each other and the reason why we are not a group of savages and we are a group of a modern and advanced democracy, right? And when you violate the law and try to impose a nationalist state on the others, you go to jail, and that's what happened to Junqueras. And he was told a million times before he decided to do that. I feel very bad for him, but that was his decision, and the decision of Puigdemont was to flee away the country, perfectly aware of what the Constitution says. When you do those sort of things, it's not strange. It happens in many constitutions. The sort of thing we did in Catalonia is recognized in every federal constitution. You need to ensure that the rights of citizens are defended everywhere, right? So within the Constitution, we can do anything. But let me tell you something, which also sometimes is ignored in the international debate. Spain is already a hugely decentralized democracy.
It's gone as far as it can go when it comes to decentralization. There's no more it can do.
Not much more you can do. You already have health policy, social policy, employment policy. You have the prisons. You have embassies all over the world. You have education policy. You have all the management on language. I don't know if you can tell me. Probably the others can tell me. I know of federal states that have less power than Catalans have. They are.
Let me turn to Daniel Campos on this. Daniel.
Well, allow me to step back for a second and wish everybody who's listening to us a happy St. George Day, which is a big day in Catalonia in which we offer to each other a rose and a book as symbols of love and culture. So I hope everybody, each of you will do this with its family and its beloved ones. Look, a couple of comments. Mr. Roldan has just used the word supremacist, which is a harsh word, you will agree with me. I mean, I'm not sure it really deserves many seconds of my answer, but my wife is Arab. I've spent all my professional career until 3 years ago, or 3 months ago, working in sub-Saharan Africa. So, talking about supremacism here, Tony, you and I used to have beers together 10, 15 years ago at university, and I think we should be careful with the vocabulary we use if we want to find big consensuses. Constitution, Article 92 of the Spanish Constitution allows to have consultations to any part of Spain or the whole of Spain. This article, if the Congress of Spain asked it to the president and then the king, because it's still a monarchy, was to sign that decree, we could consult the Catalans, and maybe we would realize that there are actually only 40% of Catalans who want independence, and end of the story. And then we will be talking about many of the real issues with which I agree with many of my predecessors, that we should be talking about other things. But it's impossible to talk about other things without solving the Catalan question. How do you solve the Catalan question? Well, look, according to 80% of Catalans, the solution is to hold a referendum. Maybe it's the solution, maybe it's not the right solution, but when 80% of Catalans want a referendum, and when more than half want a radical, politically different project, which is the independence, a new Catalan republic, you need to address that. And I believe that the Socialist Party, in a very timid way, is trying to address it. But what we hear from our colleagues from Ciudadanos is simply, constitution, trying to ignore the fact that 5-7 years ago, independentism in Catalonia was a minority. It was 15% of people. Today it's about 50%. We don't know exactly, because last time we tried to vote, they were beating our heads, but it's about 50%. It may be going up. We need to do something. Spain needs to do something. Otherwise, we'll stay voting once every year, which nobody of us, I'm sure, wants.
All right, we're going to pick up on these points when we come back. Stay with us. You're watching the France 24 debate. Welcome back, or welcome if you're just joining us. It's the France 24 debate, and we're looking at the elections that are coming up this Sunday in Spain. Third time in 4 years the Spaniards are going to the polls. And it's with us to talk about it from Madrid, Ciudadanos Member of Parliament and candidate, Tony Roldan. Welcome back as well to Tony Fernandez, Deputy Secretary General of the Europe branch of the ruling Socialist Party, Daniel Camels, delegate of the Catalan government to France, and France 24 correspondent Sarah Morris, who is with us from the Spanish capital. Just a reminder, Pedro Sanchez's socialists finished a very distant second to the Conservatives in the last general election. He became prime minister when Conservative leader Mariano Rajoy lost his support for the coalition government. That was 2016. The Socialists stand to be the big winners, if you believe the latest polls from the election that is taking place next Sunday, a projected 129 seats if the latest polls prove right. But again, the magic number, Sarah Morris, to form a government is 176. And is Catalonia, like we saw during Monday's debate, the issue that's dominating the campaign?
There are other issues that have come up in this campaign, all sorts of issues. For instance, the question of women's rights. There's been a series of very high-profile cases of gang rape, and one of the suggestions by the Socialists was that the law should be changed to ensure that consent by women is explicit. If it's not a no, if it's not a yes, rather, then the man should consider that is a no, and that's been quite well discussed in this campaign. That's one of the things that Vox, in particular, the new right-wing party, seems to be tapping into. Vox seems to be tapping into a lot of side issues which have galvanised a lot of lobbies and a lot of groups, like men who feel that women's rights in Spain have gone too far, that they're being used against men in custody cases, for instance. But Catalonia is certainly a big issue because, as Tony Roldan expressed it, lots of Catalans do feel that there was a coup d'etat in 2017, and they do feel that the country was focused on something that they didn't need to be focused on during an economic crisis. They're very worried about it, and it seems as if the reaction of Vox, of people switching to Vox, may be a protest movement. We certainly saw that in Andalusia, for instance, in the December election, when a lot of Andalusians, many of whom have relatives who have in the past gone to work in factories in Catalonia and have made Catalonia wealthy as they see it, they have listened to the quite warlike terms used by Vox against the Catalan nationalists. So a big issue, but not the only one. It's been years of very stringent crisis here in Spain. The economy is now growing, but many Spaniards feel that they haven't got money in their pockets at the end of the month, that they are still struggling, and that those jobs are very short-term, particularly young people. And so we saw a lot of those issues come up in the debate, even talk of single-parent families, lots and lots of issues, taxation, and Podemos' message was basically waiving the constitution. That made for quite a few jokes on the social networks. Pablo Iglesias with the constitution in his hand, because he said the constitution doesn't just guarantee the indivisibility of Spain, it also guarantees the right, for instance, to a dignified home.
All right, the issues that we've seen throughout the past decade coming to the fore again in this election campaign. Sarah was mentioning Vox. Last December, the far right made its return to Spanish electoral politics, tipping the scales away from the socialists in their decades-long lock on power in Andalusia. Like the AFD in Germany or Marine Le Pen's Renouveau National here in France, Muslims often the target of their discourse.
We think that a Colombian citizen who is black is much easier to integrate and to coexist than a gingerhead person from a country in the Maghreb.
Tony Fernandez, how do you explain the rise of Vox?
Well, I think it's part of a global phenomenon. What is sad in Spain, and let me refer to the remarks that were made before by Mr. Roldan, is that Ciudadanos and Popular Party have been amplifying this xenophobic and misogynistic type of speech during the campaign.
How so?
They have been, well, monopolizing the campaign about, Spain being broken up by the Socialist Party, sending false accusations, trying to discuss about things which are not, issues that worry, the Spanish society. I think that, it's living in denial because...
But how does that translate into the kind of anti-Islam speech that we just heard there?
Well, I think that, it's kind of surprising from Mr. Roldan before saying that, Pedro Sanchez has been, in agreement when there was no such agreement with the so-called supremacist party. And they are, Ciudadanos and Partido Popular are teaming up in Andalusia with Vox with this type of speech, which, as I said, is part of the frustration. You can explain that by years of austerity, of failed economic policies. But I think that what the Socialist Party is defending, and I think that we hope to see this on Sunday during the election, is to have a more inclusive society, precisely to fight this this anti-immigration feeling.
Tony Roldan, how do you feel personally about the fact that at the other end of the country from where your constituency is, in Andalusia, a far-right party is helping to prop up a coalition that includes your Ciudadanos party?
Look, I was there in the negotiation of the agreement in Andalusia. What we had in Andalusia was basically 40 years of socialist government, right? Humongous cases of corruption, terrible management. So there were basically two options. Either we agreed with the Popular Party, which I was there writing the agreement with the Conservative Party, which is an agreement that basically puts forward a number of reforms to to improve democracy, to save some money, to lower some taxes, to do better market policies. It's a perfectly normal agreement. There's no concession to Vox, and Vox decided to vote yes to that agreement. But we don't depend on them. There's nothing that we have agreed with them specifically. So there is, it's simply not true what it was said. But let me, about the supremacism debate, which I think is relevant, what Daniel was saying. He's a very good friend, and obviously I don't think he's a supremacist, but definitely what we are seeing in Catalonia, it's very worrying. Look, I'm going to read you something, which is a sentence and you tell me how it sounds to you. There is a risk that the nation gets dissolved in a glass of milk immersed in the migratory avalanche. Right? This is written in 2012 by the Catalan president. It's not Le Pen, or it's not the Lega Norte or Salvini, right? This is the Catalan xenophobic president. I understand that some people in the Catalan pro-independence movement might think that this is a progressive movement, but this is not. Catalonia is the richest region in Spain. Those within Catalonia that support independence are those that are richer. And I obviously disagree completely with the idea that Spain is not democratic. There is a process to do a referendum through the constitution. We voted 5 times in Catalonia, four or five times in the last 5 years. The nationalists never got a sufficient majority, more than 50% of the vote. We are obviously, by any international standard, if you look at the Economist Democracy Index, we are above France or Belgium in terms of rating as a democracy. So there is nothing wrong about Spanish democracy. What's wrong is nationalism. And just to answer the last question, which is the Vox issue and the rise of Vox. Look, I think nationalism tends to create nationalism in the other side. So there was a threat, and in Catalonia, a radical, ultra-nationalist conservative government led by Torra has created a reaction in Spain. And this reaction is also from ultra-nationalist conservatives, which I obviously dislike, which is Vox. And this is the main driver of the vote of Vox in Spain.
All right, Daniel Camels, on this point, something Sarah Morris said earlier, people from Andalusia who work in Catalonia come home, and kind of a blowback effect, which makes that the far right rises. Your thoughts on that? Is there an element of truth there?
Look, I think there are two things here that one should be careful with. First is, I think that it's unfair or even dangerous to compare a fascist party like Vox, which is what it is. These are the Spanish Le Pen is Vox. And these are the people who are allowing Ciudadanos to govern in Andalusia. We should not be comparing this with a movement in Catalonia with which you may agree or disagree, have sympathy or not. But as a matter of fact, I just showed official figures from 1 month ago. 80% of Catalans want a referendum. And more important than that, how do we explain and how do we manage that the independence parties in Catalonia got from 15 to 50% in the last few years? If Spain wants to save Catalonia, they need to put something that is sufficiently appealing for a majority of Catalans on the table. I'm still waiting for it. I was not for independence until 3-4 years ago. And I represent, I think that many people in Catalonia went through this transition. We lost hope on Spain. Can someone from the Socialist Party, from Ciudadanos, from the Popular Party put an offer that is sufficiently attractive on the table? If they can, bravo. And then let's go to the polls again and let's vote their proposal, independentism, and let's see who wins. But at the end of the day, let the people vote.
All right. Tony Fernandez, before there was the argument over Catalan independence, there was the financial crisis. And that financial crisis, a lot of citizens felt embittered. They felt as though politicians from both sides of the aisle were complicit in letting the rules be a little bit too lax. The criticism that's been made is that both the Conservative PP and the Socialists, well, they'd prefer to have an argument about nationalism than an argument about what went wrong in terms of letting the economy go down the drain.
Well, I'm afraid that is not the case for Socialist Party. Precisely, we have tried, and I think that's what I said before, trying to talk in the campaign about the issues that really matter. What type of air do we want to breathe in our cities? What type of economy we want to have? Do we want to have low salaries? What type of retirement system we want to have? Do we want to have a decent retirement system in our country? I think those are the issues. I'm not saying that Catalonia is not an issue, because of course it's an important one, but it should not monopolize. We're speaking of the Spanish election, so it should not monopolize completely the debate.
But how do you explain? Since 2007, we've gone from what? From the Indignados movement, the rise of Podemos, that was the left, right? Then you've had the crisis in Catalonia, and now you've got the rise of the far right. How did we get there?
Well, you can see, I mean, this, as I said before, I mean, this is a global phenomenon. I mean, I think that, Trump won the election in the US with this type of rhetoric. The Brexit happened. The question that, the Spanish voters face today is, do we want to go to the same place? I mean, see what happened with Brexit. We have spent 3 years, wasting energies, wasting resources to something that pretty much looks like, where the UK was before, except that, out of the, let's say, decision-making institutions of the EU. So, I mean, what voters, and particularly in Catalonia, may want to decide is, do they want to restore faith in the institutions, discuss about issues that matter, especially, within the framework of the self-government that they have, which is one of the highest, in the world? Or do they want to keep on, having this, living in denial, or, trying to having this, I think, this polarization of society, which is something that clearly interests Partido Popular and Ciudadanos, on the one hand, and the separatist political parties on the other hand, who have been in government for the last years and have not approved any reform, have completely disregarded, education, health institutions. So I think that this is really what is worrying, and I think that clearly the Socialist Party is standing out of this crowd by trying to restore an agenda, to restore credibility of the institutions. And of course, the main difference, I would say, in the approach is that we have tried to restore normality, to restore institutional normality by discussing with the Catalan government, because the solution that was proposed by Ciudadanos in Catalonia, because they won the last elections, they were the most voted party in Catalonia, let's not forget that, was basically to live in denial. I mean, because nothing happened. I mean, their leader is now living. She's a candidate for, in the elections on Sunday to go to a Spanish parliament. So, I mean, there was no progress. So there's a big divide in the Catalan society, and I think that the only way to de-escalate the tensions in our society is precisely to, well, first of all, restore normality. And I think that this is the stance of the socialist government.
All right, let me ask you, Sarah Morris. We've seen, we said it at the outset, third general election in 4 years, but of course, the first one since that banned October 2017 independence referendum in Catalonia. You've described to us often how you see more flags being waved across Spain than you used to. What's been the mood like in terms of the campaign this time around compared to 2016?
It's certainly true that Spaniards did not strike me as particularly nationalistic in the 10 or so years that I've lived here. That Spanish flag came out really for the World Cup or for other sporting events. But there was definitely a reaction of flag waving to the flag waving of the independence flag in Catalonia that we've witnessed over the last few years. This campaign has been an interesting one. There's certainly the Catalan factor, but there's been all sorts of debates that have come into the fore. And one of them perhaps that we shouldn't forget is that there was a protest and a lot more talk about people who live in rural areas who are without services. The so-called depopulation problem, which is similar to France in a way, explains perhaps some of the yellow vest movement, people who feel they live on the margins and are not getting the support they should from politicians, the middle classes, even in villages that might not have services. And that's certainly the case in Spain. There's more than half of the Spanish territory now where people have moved into the industrial poles, like Madrid and like Barcelona. And they could be voting very tactically in this election, looking to the parties that have gone there campaigning in this election, promising them that they will get back to addressing some of those concerns, connecting them to the internet, for instance, encouraging businesses to go to those places, because Spain is a very diverse country with regions and autonomous regions with serious powers locally. But it looks as if some of those people feel that they're forgotten and really want to make their voices heard on Sunday.
All right, and by the way, just so you know, it's not going to be the last time the Spaniards vote because, well, a month later, there are municipal elections taking place, the same day as European elections will be taking place. I think it's May the 26th, the date. Tony Roldan, forgive me for asking, it's France 24 here. Manuel Valls, the former French prime minister, could he really become the mayor of Barcelona?
It'd be fantastic. He's a fantastic politician. I think he understood very well the huge problem we are facing in Catalonia.
Because his presidential ambitions fell flat very early here. Why do you think he's fantastic?
Well, I mean, he obviously has an amazing experience as a mayor, as a minister, as a prime minister in France. I think he's a moderate, pro-European politician with a fantastic experience to be the mayor of Barcelona, to help in the internationalization of Barcelona, which is looking inward right now with a mix of semi-populist mayor that they have with the combination of nationalism in Catalonia. And I think it's the sort of person that could provide exactly the sort of cosmopolitan, different approach, which is what we defend for Barcelona.
Daniel Camus, the incumbent mayor, Ada Colau, she's green, closer to Podemos. She's been trying to navigate between both camps when it comes to the issue of separatism. Your thoughts on this candidacy by Manuel Valls? I guess do people ask you all the time about it as the delegate for Catalonia here?
Yes, this is a right guess. They ask me all the time. I all my respect for Manuel Valls as a French politician that he was. And second and last point on this, I want to be very short, is right now he's the fifth on the polls out of the six candidates that will probably have representation. So I don't think he has any chance, to be honest. But well, my best luck to him if you want. On the current mayor, Ada Colau, who's on the front line together with independentist Ernest Maragall. I believe that Ada Colau is interesting for one reason, as you've just hinted to, which is that she is not pro-independence, but she's pro-democracy, she's pro-referendum. She wants the Catalans to decide, and she's willing to go and campaign against independence. And she said it again and again and again, and I believe this is what explains that 80% of Catalans want a referendum, and only about 50% today want independence.
And the fact that a former French prime minister is solicited as a candidate, does that also perhaps an indictment of the local political class?
Look, I'm European at heart. I've lived in many European countries. I think Erasmus may be the best thing that has happened in the European Union in the last 3-4 decades. And I believe that if we could have Erasmus of politicians moving around Europe and, genuinely trying to build a stronger and more federal European society from that level, that would be fantastic. Obviously, I think it was an opportunistic move from his side, but I prefer not to go deeper on that one.
All right. Tony Fernandez, on Sunday night, what will be the issue that decides the election?
Well, I hope, that the measures that the government has been approving in the last months, raising the minimum salary, raising, retirement pensions, trying to equal women's rights to men's rights, and trying therefore to put half of the society in equal footing with the rest, I think should be the driver for society, and also trying to fix the problems instead of denying them, as we have seen a bit, with what has happened in Catalonia. I think that you have two sides that are basically trying to hide from the problem and trying to exacerbate hatred instead of trying to restore the faith in the institutions. And I hope that this is going to be the driver for the election.
Tony Roldan, what will be the key issue when voters put their ballot in the box on Sunday?
So just let me answer quickly. Look, I absolutely disagree with the idea that we want to confront. We just want to defend freedom. When we go to a village in Catalonia, to Vic or any place where we have voters of Ciudadanos, we actually won the election in Catalonia, we have the right to go anywhere, and we are permanently insulted. They clean the floor after we pass. They signal us. We have brutal attacks every time we go to these places. That's hate, and that has a name, which is nationalism. Stop justifying or minimizing what we have. We need to face that problem. I understand that for PSOE, it's easier because you need their votes to pretend that these people that, by the way, President Sanchez of the Socialist Party called them Le Pen just a few months before getting in bed with them for the government. All of a sudden, they are fantastic and they're doing very progressive things. That's false. As regards to the economy, which is the other crucial thing we are facing here, because we have a problem that I was saying before, I think we are facing very important challenges. I think it's a terrible idea to give the economic management and to depend on Podemos. Podemos proposes the nationalization of the electricity system. They propose sort of universal minimum income that would automatically cost 15 billion that we cannot pay. We are still, as I was saying, the second economy with the largest deficit in the EU. We need to do reforms. It's in the good side of the cycle that you need to do reforms on human capital, on institutions, on the crucial issues to promote long-term growth. And with this coalition, depending on these ultra-nationalists and populists, the Socialist Party doesn't go anywhere. We need to do the reforms now. So it's crucial that we stop depending on nationalists and that we don't give the keys of the economy to Podemos. And that's exactly what Sanchez has done. And that's why we need a fundamental change in Spanish politics.
All right, Tony Roldan, I want to thank you. So many more questions. Unfortunately, we're running short on time. I want to thank you for joining us from Madrid. I want to thank as well our correspondent, Sarah Morris there. Tony Fernandez and Daniel Camos, thank you for being with us here in the France 24 debate.